You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 325. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, author of How to Get On Podcasts, the podcast matchmaker, and CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. I'm excited to share the stories and life lessons of changemakers and authors with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, I am introducing you to my friend, Erika Lucas. I feel we have so much in common that we didn't even know when we first met, both having career histories in the aerospace industry, finding our voices today, trying to make a difference. And Erika is doing all of that and so much more in the work that she does in a state in which you would not expect her to be doing it. You wouldn't expect her to be living there because that's even what some of her followers are saying. So get ready to hear how Erika has found her voice, the important things that we're talking about that need to be talked about today, and how we're both working to make a difference in the world. Hi, Erika.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
Thank you so much for coming. And I see that you're representing Thunder.
Yes.
Right?
We're going to the playoffs.
My husband said, well, he called last night. He's in Vegas right now. And he said, I think are the Thunder going to take them tonight? Or is it the Timberwolves are going to take them?
Yesterday, so
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He was mentioning it. I was like, I'm sorry. We have the soccer game on because you're not home and the kids want to watch the earthquakes. So the Warriors are out. So I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I totally get it. You can cheer on us though. No.
Okay. I will, just in your honor. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. I love following you and I love the work that you're doing, particularly around, coaching people how to get on podcasts and how to be a podcast guest and all of that, because we run our own podcast. But for people that don't know, Erika Lucas, I am based here in Oklahoma City. Background from Mexico, born and raised. So typical immigrant story. I came here when I was 13 years old with my single mother and my sister. Them being who they are, assimilated very well and did very well. I went back to Mexico. I was like, this is not for me. Started my career over there, helping what is now popular international businesses establish operations in Mexico. So dealt a lot with tariffs and, what it's like to start operations in another country. And then when I came back to visit my mom about 20 years ago, I met my husband, and he's from here, from Oklahoma. So that's what led me back into the United States, into Oklahoma. Started working for the state of Oklahoma, helping now Oklahoma-based companies export products overseas. So again, in the tariffs economic development world. And then in 2017, Michelle, so that led me to private equity. So one of the industries we were recruiting was aerospace and defense. I tell people I am now redeeming myself from all the industries in corporate America. Everything that I did, like I'm trying to, do good in the world.
Same.
But anyway, so private equity and aerospace and defense. And then I came across the funding gap that exists for women of color when they're launching and growing businesses. So I wanted to do something about that. Tried to talk to a lot of people to start their organization because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to get paid. But instead, we ended up establishing a nonprofit organization that has now provided millions of dollars of non-dilutive grants to entrepreneurs, primarily socially and economically disadvantaged entrepreneurs. So that includes, of course, women, people of color, rural founders, veteran founders, LGBTQ, and more. And then one of the things that we were talking about this before we started recording, but one of the things we found out as we were supporting women entrepreneurs is that 90% of the women entrepreneurs we've supported didn't necessarily wake up one day and said, I'm going to start my own business, right? They did it because they were escaping corporate America, right? Mm-hmm. Because we design workplaces with a very specific persona in mind. and not thinking of how it affects women or caregivers or other communities. And so we wanted to do something about that. So we started VEST. VEST is a peer network community of women professionals across industries, across career levels, where women just come in and support one another, right? With through career transitions, through leveling up at work, through personal matters. And then in 2020, we launched a fund to invest in women-led companies that are building specifically in the care economy or in ways to support employers to build more inclusive workspaces that benefit not just women, but caregivers and everyone. Really, when you support women, everybody benefits.
Yes. Preach to the choir. Yes. Yes. I once
So sorry
applied for
for the
a
long answer, but I have to, there's a lot of it.
No, it's perfect. I once applied for a TED Talk about how moms are the answer to literally everything. And at the time, it was when George Floyd was murdered, and how I said that racism starts at home and we have to teach our children. Of course, this was based in Utah, the TED Talk, and that was not accepted at all. These people were like, no. And I totally get the corporate. So I was in corporate aviation for almost 20 years.
Oh
And
my
I
God,
always say
we have that in common.
I kept the 1% very rich because I saved them money on their fuel. That was my job. So I'm sorry.
Look, we'll exchange stories in women in aerospace and aviation, and yeah,
Yeah, there's not many of us.
no, not at the leadership level
Oh,
for
no.
sure.
No. And the ones, so my experience, I ended up having a female manager, and she was horrific. I thought, okay, maybe if I have a female boss, like that
Mhm.
would make a difference. No, I had a C-section, and 2 weeks later I was back at work, and she's like, "You need to come across the East Coast and bring the baby, and the baby can stay with the receptionist." And I was like, "What the heck? No, this is no,
I
no."
was asked this question recently because the thought is, well, if you just put more women into an industry or into a company, right? I was asked this question when you remember when the whole meta controversy came out when Mark said something about we need more masculine energy in
Oh,
corporate
yes.
America.
Yes.
And then a lot of women came in support. A lot of women working in Meta came in support of Mark, right? And so I was asked about this at another show, and I said, we believe that by putting more women in a workplace, it will inherently make it more inclusive. But the truth is, we assimilate into these workspaces often just to survive, right? So as women, we're like, told you need to fit in, just, put your head down and just work really, really hard and isolate yourself. And so there's all of these things that lead more, even if women come in like ready to change it from the inside out or whatever. The truth is that more, 9 out of 10 times you end up assimilating into that culture, even if it's a toxic culture.
It's such a shame. And so those of us who are not the ones assimilating, we're like, we're out.
Exactly. It really is. Or we end up working ourselves until our health decline.
Mhm.
That's why, now when you look at women in the C-suite, we do have more women in the C-suite, but 50% of women in the C-suite are considering, you know, quitting the workplace in general or downsizing, right? Because it became so lonely or because they're having health issues and stuff. So we end up working ourselves to sickness and other stuff.
What is it? This is a personal question because you've brought up so much of you were born in Mexico, you left, you came back. Tariffs. I feel like that should be a trigger word now.
It is every time I say something about it.
Yes, but how has this affected you personally? This second time this administration is here, it feels much worse than the first. I think the first I was like, "Oh my God, no." And then we got through 4 years, but now we're in 4 months, and it feels like it feels longer than those first 4 years, and
Mhm,
it's just so bad.
mhm,
And I have to imagine, because I do have friends who are immigrants. They're here legally. I know people illegally and legally here, and those who are citizens and who are afraid, even though they're here legally, even though they are now citizens, of what could happen. How is that for you personally, if you're willing to share that?
Yeah, of course. It's terrible. Terrible because I support that, I'm still part of that community and I still support that community a lot. And I hear the stories, the personal stories. And like you said, I think it is worse because the first time around, I feel like the presidency was at least surrounded by somewhat normal people. That's terrible to say, but he had a cabinet that maybe, I disagree with Mike Pence on a lot of things, but he was decent, and there was other people that served in the cabinet. Mark Esper in defense in the defense department. I knew Mark from when I worked in aerospace and defense. May not agree with him always, but he's decent. I feel like this time around, he surrounded himself by people that are not willing to tell him when he's doing something wrong. In fact, they're enabling, um, activity that I would question whether or not it's legal or constitutional. And so I think that's why it just feels so heavy. Right. And I also feel like it's not just, the policy. I think if you really look deep down, the pattern that we continue to see, whether we're talking about immigration, whether we're talking about federal jobs that are being cut, whether we're talking about, this new big, beautiful bill, the pattern of consistency across all of this is cruelty.
Mhm.
It's just cruel. It like some of it doesn't even make sense as to why we're doing it. It's not saving us a lot. It's not cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Um, but the common denominator is it's just cruel legislation and cruel way of going about things. I think if you talk to anybody, and I live in Oklahoma, so Utah, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
people joke that Texas is, one of the most conservative states in the nation. I'm like, that's because you haven't been to Oklahoma. um, so I've had to like work with both parties. We have a super majority here, so if you want to get anything done, you have to work with the Republicans. And so I'm used to like negotiating and debating and having conversations with people I disagree with, but this is on another level because of that cruelty.
Yeah. And I imagine the people that you're working with, the businesses, they have to be scared. Like I hate that there is such a fear in people to not only live their lives, but to be, you're fearful of being at home at this point.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I mean,
it's so scary to go to school, to go to
yeah,
church, to go to the hospital.
yeah, it's definitely affected immigrant entrepreneurs on that level, whether they're here legally or undocumented, because I was just talking to, she's a VEST member, brilliant, but she's here on a visa and uh, sponsored by employer, uber smart. And she's like, she doesn't want to go back home and come back. There's that uncertainty. And what I tell people, whether we're talking about entrepreneurs, immigrant entrepreneurs, whether we're talking about Latino entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, how can we expect people to build companies and to like create and innovate and collaborate if you're often just worried about your safety or we're taking away social and safety nets for people. Healthcare, for example, is a second. So after fear of, failing or fear of losing your steady income, the second, the number two reason why entrepreneurs don't launch businesses is because of employer-based health insurance, right? Like having to
Yeah.
pay for health insurance is so expensive, and a lot of people stay in jobs that they've outgrown or never launch that company that could be the great next thing because of the way we do healthcare in our country. And so we're not having these conversations and we're not providing these, call them safety nets, call them whatever you want to. But to me, they're barriers to entry for a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm talking about business and economic development policy, right? Not
Yeah.
social policy or whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, so instead of talking about that, we're talking about what Pete Hex said, texted somebody, or just crazy stuff because we're not putting competent people in places of leadership.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. Uh, I fully agree because the reason I can do this is because my husband has a corporate job. And so we have a health insurance. And even though we have health insurance that the company partially pays for, it's still
It's still expensive.
ridiculous. I had to have a mammogram at the beginning of the year. So that was $1,300.
Yeah.
The next one comes in July. That's another $800. It's expensive, even with insurance.
Yeah.
So to not have insurance, to try to be doing this on your own, it's impossible. It's
Right.
virtually impossible. And they want to take Medicaid, Medicare. All of these things are going away. And then you bring up Pete and the signal chats and this and that. And like, why I'm so infuriated. Yesterday were the pardons of the reality couple, the Chrisleys.
Mhm.
They're cringe to begin with. I never watched their stupid show. But now I'm like, I love people.com, but they're the first image that comes up. Oh, they're pardoned. Oh, their daughter. And she's blaming the administration that put them there. Trump was in the administration when they went to jail.
Mhm.
So you're all stupid. We knew that to begin with. But why are we focusing on this? I hate that we're giving them the time of day to get any coverage at all. These people don't deserve it. Just like, I mean, Trump was a reality star himself. What
Yeah,
Our country's
exactly.
backwards in that sense, and we continue to we're dumbing it down.
Yeah, we become a reality show.
Oh yeah,
Like,
reality shit show.
yeah, I mean, really, I agree with you. I think it's actually a distraction because of what you just said, right? Like, I care more about the corruption that's taking place on the crypto, on his coin and
Hmm.
the crypto dinner, and how he paused the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act right before he started closing all of these deals in Qatar, in the UAE, and like, if you just follow the pattern, you can see how corrupt and self-dealing this administration is, and that's what we should be talking about. We should be
Yes.
talking about the big beautiful bill, and what it does to people that need those systems to work, and instead we're over here talking about celebrity status and stupid stuff. Yeah.
And it's so funny, celebrity status for two individuals who were on reality TV. Like that's not even a celebrity. That
Right.
mean you don't have
Yeah,
the
that's what I,
talent to be
yeah,
on reality TV.
yeah, yeah.
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 You're just
And by the
willing
way,
to
more
sell
like
your
charged
soul.
for fraud. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's insane. And maybe I need to get away from people.com and stick with TMZ.
Maybe.
At least Harvey's a lawyer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh man.
I love that you were answering questions. Yesterday it was, right? And the question that somebody asked you was, how did you become so vocal, or how is it that you feel comfortable using your voice? Would you share that your response with everyone? Because I was actually wrapping my husband's birthday gifts while I was watching you. And I was like, I
Yeah.
get to talk to Erika tomorrow about this. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually, I'm going to put that as like one of the most frequently asked questions that I get, whether I'm doing, it's online or on panels and stuff. And I think that, again, I live in Oklahoma. It's a very conservative state. It's also a very small state, so only 4 million people. Like, we're big in land, but like in terms of population, it's only 4 million people. So everybody knows everybody, or everybody's like 1 degree of separation. And so sometimes we're afraid of speaking up because of if we're going to hurt people's feelings, or we're going to disagree with the neighbor. And so there's a lot of those things that play into why a lot of people don't feel comfortable speaking out. So what I tell people is, I used to be, and I don't say this from a place of judgment. I say this from a place of understanding. I used to be one of those people that was like, I'm in corporate, I'm in business. I can't be sharing my opinions. I should just not talk about politics at all. I did all of that until I realized it wasn't serving me or the communities that I come from, or our state and our city. That, like, when Oklahoma ranks terribly when it comes to education, when it comes to women's ability, upward mobility, economic mobility. So it's not serving us to not say something, right? Publicly, privately, however you feel comfortable saying it. And so how I have managed over time to develop courage and confidence is just by getting really clear with myself. Like, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe? And am I okay believing this, even if people are against it? Right? Like, you just have to, that level of clarity will give you not only the courage that you need to speak up, but also the peace if people come at you because they disagree with you. Right. And so I
Yeah.
think that oftentimes what keeps us from speaking up is fear of external factors. What are people going to think? What are my neighbors going to say? Am I going to have friends after this? you know but when you're clear within yourself and you know your values and you know what you stand for and you know what lines you're not going to cross, you gain this level of clarity and like peace that, well, even if they're not, I'm okay with myself. So I'm just accountable to my own feelings and my own, my values and my metrics.
You said it so beautifully because it literally the same thing hit me a few weeks ago. I was interviewing Anna Mitchell, an author, and we were talking about how you get to this point. For me, it was like late 30s, early 40s, where I used my voice, and she's like, "Why, I stopped caring." And I go, "I don't think that we stopped caring. I think we figured out what we care about." And it's exactly what you said, of figuring out what are my values, where do I stand. And it's kind of funny and ironic because I think about the maggots who are like, I don't care, I'm just, this is how I feel and these are my values and they're clear. And I've been told by one, I've always respected your political opinions. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm nice. Like, my political opinions are not dictating to you what you should do, where your kids should go to school, what your body should be doing. Yes, because I'm nice.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I don't hate anybody. Why shouldn't we be vocal about that?
Exactly. And I think there's a huge misconception and gaslighting going on that, oh, well, we can agree to disagree. Yeah, like on normal issues, right?
Yeah,
Like big government, small government, or government. But like right now, I feel like so much is at stake: our democracy, due process, things that these are more about values and like fundamental rights than they are about like, oh, do we just have a difference in opinion on whether we should be taxing people or not, right? Like
right.
we can debate on those things, but there are some things that I just don't move, right? And like you
Mm-hmm.
said earlier when you were having this conversation, is another thing that I've had to learn over time is I care about a lot of things, but I'm not the right person to be speaking on certain topics, or I'm not I'm just not gonna, I can, even for my own sanity. It's not that I don't care about certain issues. I'm just I'm like, I'm gonna stick to economic issues. I'm gonna stick to issues that affect entrepreneurs, issues that affect women at work, and I'm going to let my sisters take on, share leadership and take on other issues that, they're more knowledgeable about, or they're more close to. So I think it's, for me, that's been true. It's like when people ask me to, like, how do you deal with all of this and all of the chaos? Because there's always something new every
Mm-hmm.
day. It's like, I just have to pick and choose where I feel I can make a difference or speak about, right, and let others take on other stuff.
And I don't know if you found this. I have found that, especially now after this election, there is a huge group of people online who are willing to
Mhm,
lend their expertise, to collaborate,
mhm,
because I don't know all the things.
mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm not one to speak on, government
Right,
things. And I know certain issues like
right,
yourself, but I can't speak on all
right.
of them, certain international crisis. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
ask
Same.
someone else. But then there are other people who are like, well, I know about it.
Mm.
And then that's when I'm like, great, I'm going to share your content and I will inform my people. Here we go. So
Yeah.
that way we can be informed, but we don't have to be the expert. And I think that might be something that hinders others from speaking out more because they don't feel they have that expertise. And I think as women, especially, you can speak on this, that we remain more silent if we don't feel we're experts. Whereas the statistics show that men, like even when they apply for a job, they're like, well, I fit this one criteria, I'll apply.
Yeah.
Whereas women are like, oh, I don't fit that 10th criteria. So no, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we saw it last year, right? When a lot of women that I talk to now, and, one of their hesitation is, well, I don't want to speak on things because I'm not educated on the subject or whatever. Last year, we had people that were coaching on weightlifting, and like male figures on podcasts that, their niche was workouts and, you know, wellness, telling people how to vote. Right. So, like, you don't have to be an expert. And the whole point of normalizing talking about politics is so that we can learn,
Mm-hmm.
what are the issues? Because everything is political, whether we care, we like to say it or not. How people losing jobs earlier this year, that was political, right? Healthcare is political. Even some gender issues are now political, right? Like, so women are, I mean, we haven't even gotten to, the Department of Labor and how we're dismantling some of these institutions that have protected rights for women to be able to participate in the labor force. That's political. And so talking about it not only enables us to, share our opinions, but also learn about
Yeah.
the intersectionality of all of these things, of policy and politics with our careers and our jobs and how corporations are run. So even one more reason why we should normalize talking about politics,
Yes.
particularly with women.
And I love to remind people that literally us having this conversation is political because we're both in our homes. We both pay property tax. That's all political.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we're on the internet, oh, there, it's all FCC. There's all of these things. Everything we do is political. I will drive to pick up my kids from school at a public school, political. Using the city streets,
Public roads.
political. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everything we do has politics involved. And so
Exactly.
for anyone to say, I don't want to talk politics, like, dude, the fact that you can open your mouth is politics.
Exactly.
So no, let's normalize
Mm-hmm.
just having these conversations. But back to your point of values, and we're in a time where, yes, talking about politics used to be Republicans versus Democrats, and we don't want to rock the boat of, how much should we tax this group and this group. It's now literally human beings and rights, and it's so much more than just simple politics.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. 100%.
And we have to share with everybody where we met. We met through the PERSIST network, but like with all of them, I then get to connect with you one-on-one and be like, do you want to be my friend?
Yes, one of the best things that has happened since the last election. Back in 2016, I actually did hit rock bottom because I was naive enough and maybe too much in my corporate bubble back then because I was still in private equity and all of that. I didn't think it could happen. I didn't normalize Trump. I didn't, I was like, no way in hell.
Yeah.
He was not, in my opinion, fit for office. He couldn't, it's to date, he can't complete a full sentence. He didn't have any original ideas for all of the reasons. But then he wins, and I mean, it was bad. Like, I didn't trust anybody. I isolated myself. Living in a red state, it was like double the trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working in a very conservative setting as well. And so I isolated myself in a huge difference. And it took me a while to like start trusting people and building community and networking and all of that. I think the main difference from then and in 2020 and now is that I have learned the value and importance of having support systems, right? And having communities of people that share your values. One, so that you don't feel so lonely. Two, we've talked about it, to share leadership. So it's not always you saying the things or being brave or having to have the courage to do something. But also just to like vent and cry and strategize and plan. Because it's lonely. It can be very lonely to do advocacy work, and having this community persist and others has meant the world to me because I've learned the value of having those support systems.
Yes, and I love getting to know new people like yourself and what you do, and to know that, these businesses are out there existing. You've been there, and I just love that it brings more awareness and
Mhm.
elevates the important stuff. Because like we said, the crap is already being elevated. So now we need to push it aside and really elevate those who are doing the work and have been doing it all along. And that's exactly you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And yeah, I believe in that so much because so often we focus on like the big celebrity status influencers or even business owners or people that have built multi-million-dollar businesses and now they've exited and they've wrote a book and everybody's like doing interviews with them, but oftentimes they're not relatable, right? Like,
Right.
so we need to be talking about like just normal people doing things, struggling, trying to make a difference in whatever capacity, and we need to amplify their voice. I'm not talking about me. I'm just talking about just in general,
Yeah,
like,
but we're going
how
to
do we
amplify
build
yours
community? How
too.
do we support one another? Yeah. Because I do think that that's been a big disconnect with the community, especially people that feel disenfranchised from the way politics work in our country. They just need to see that regular people are doing regular things in whatever capacity.
You're amazing. I'm so glad that we're now friends.
Yes,
It's only going to
same
grow
here.
from here.
Same here.
Can you share with everyone where they can find you, please?
Yes. So Instagram, obviously. I'm on TikTok as well. I'm on Threads. I'm not on X. Um, well, at Blue Sky, I'm trying to, but like if I add another platform,
I
but
know.
but but I love. I mean, I know I should be. I just haven't been more engaging more with it. And then of course LinkedIn.
And then what's your website?
Oh, yeah. So for StitchCrew, that is a nonprofit where we support entrepreneurs. You can go to stitchcrew.com. For VEST, that's the peer network and investment fund for women. You can go to vesther.co. And yeah, and then I have my personal website, erikalucas.co.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I loved hearing how Erika felt that she has found her values, her true core meaning of what she wants in life, believes in life, and how that is her guiding force in everything she does. I think that is so important for each and every one of us to truly not only think about, but to then take action on. That is what is going to move the needle. That is what is going to change our country from where it is. And it's truly what is going to make the difference in today's world. Go find Erika, follow her. I know you will feel inspired by everything she is putting out into the world. And I'm so grateful that she joined me for this conversation.